Hola digital world, welcome back to another episode of Spliced In Later, our third episode of the week and our second movie review of the week. This is very exciting. I've never had this much content to do in 1 week. It's almost like movies are back to normal. How exciting. It's great. I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying going back to the movie theaters. I'm enjoying taking in new movies, especially movies that I was not even aware were coming out and movies that I was intrigued to see based from trailers or word of mouth or anything like that. As you may know from listening to yesterday's episode, or today's, however you are in the world and when you woke up, I am riding the emotional high that is the enjoyment of Mortal Kombat. So far, the best movie of 2021, in my opinion. So today, we went and saw something completely different, but something that's still relevant to this podcast and to me as a person. If you're familiar with my content, if you've seen other movies I reviewed, if you've seen specific episodes I've focused on, you will know that the reason why I saw this movie was because of the director. And it was interesting to get myself to go and see it, because based on what I saw from the trailer, based on the lack of marketing, based on everything I know about this director and what I was seeing in terms of the movie, it didn't gel. It didn't seem like the type of movie that I would expect from this director. And the lack of advertising and the sudden, oh, this movie's out in a couple of weeks, made me a little apprehensive that perhaps not everybody thought this movie was going to do particularly good and did not focus too much on the whole advertising and going, guess what, this movie's coming. More just, here it is. Have a look if you like. But I never, ever count a movie out until I see it. Even if I see a bunch of movies that are terrible, I will most likely go and see the next installment of that terrible film series, because I like to be surprised, I like to be optimistic, and I also just like going to the movie theaters, good or bad. But today, we are reviewing the new Guy Ritchie film, Wrath of Man. Now, going back on my podcast episodes, you will have seen that I will have dedicated an entire episode to the direction of Guy Ritchie, and one of his movies, the most recent, The Gentleman, even got a specific movie review from me at the start of 2020, before everything went to hell. Guy Ritchie is one of my favorite directors by far, because it is a unique experience every time you go and see one of his movies. He has a very specific style, which I go into in much more detail in the Guy Ritchie episode if you want to go back and listen to that one. But for the most part, Guy Ritchie films are really fun English films about crime and criminals and crime capers and gangs and all of that stuff. The fact that he's got his own production company called Tough Guys, a big reference to Snatch, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Rock and Roller, all of that sort of stuff. The theme for each movie mostly is generally the same, which is you get an assortment of kooky characters, some more likable than others, but never good people, some sympathetically than others, but not necessarily good versus bad. Everybody's got grey on them. Some are notoriously evil, some do some shifty things because they're selfish or greedy, whatever. There's always a MacGuffin, or there's an event that gets a bunch of wacky oddjob people colliding in normally extremely violent yet hilarious ways. The dialogue that Guy Ritchie puts in these films is very over-the-top Cockney English slang sort of humor, lots of swearing. The violence that eventually breaks out is normally very, very bloody, not gory, but bloody and sudden, and people can suddenly die just like that in amusing ways though, so you will be chuckling when these people are pushed off the board. And more or less the same sort of actors tend to pop up in these movies: Jason Statham, Vinnie Jones, Jason Fleming, Charlie Hunnam, however you pronounce his last name. For the most part, I have seen Guy Ritchie's 3 or 4 now with The Gentleman, 4 main films: Rock and Roller, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, and The Gentleman. And I love them all. They are all uniquely the same and yet all uniquely different. But the Guy Ritchie humor and quality dialogue and quirky characters and all of that is still there. I've also discussed how every now and then Guy Ritchie has gone off and gone more mainstream Hollywood, picking up things or franchises that are generally well known to the public. But even then, even directing them, he puts his own Guy Ritchie spin on it, which sometimes can work remarkably well, like The Man from U.N.C.L., sometimes can be a bit uneven, like King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, and others can be split right down the middle in terms of whether you think it's an okay movie or a piece of trash, with the live-action remake of Aladdin. But all these films, I've generally had a good time, and I've always recognized Guy Ritchie's imprint, his footprint, his his mark on all his films, and the characters and the actors and the dialogue and all of that, and it's always been very enjoyable. So I saw the trailer for Wrath of Man, and I didn't know it was a Guy Ritchie film until it said from director Guy Ritchie, and I went, oh, that's unexpected, because the trailer did not seem like a Guy Ritchie film. It seemed like a standard action film, and action revenge plot involving the very beloved and well-known Jason Statham, who I really treasure as a person. As an actor, I don't think he's the best in the world, but he strikes to me the same way that Dwayne Johnson works for a lot of people. He seems like a very likable, very friendly guy who's willing to take on anything, and he's the politest guy in public. He's politest with the people that he's working with. He said before that he will continue making Expendables films for as long as Sylvester Stallone asks him to, because he likes Sly and he just wants to help him out, which is great. But the trailer itself was just shoot, 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 bang, 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 action, 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 which was not what I thought for a Guy Ritchie film. But Guy Ritchie, I'll give him a chance. So I went and saw it. One thing I'm going to say before I start reviewing this movie is that this film suffers absolutely from the trailer gives away too much of the movie. If you haven't seen the trailer, don't see it if you're planning on seeing this movie. If you accidentally see it, that's unfortunate. It can't really help you with that one. But as I mentioned with movies like Terminator Genesis, this is one of those movies where the main plot is spoiled in the trailer, whereas the way this movie is set up, that particular piece of information for the first half hour or so is supposed to be a mystery. Jason Statham's character is the mysterious H. You don't know who he is, where he's come from, or why he's doing what he's doing. Unless, of course, you've seen the trailer. And then you know a little bit of what he's doing, which alleviates that mystery of why he's doing things that he's doing, which is extremely frustrating and something that was bugging me for the first bit of this movie. So yeah, I will say avoid the trailer if you can, if you're going to see the movie, or at least if you do see the trailer, don't take it for granted as well, because you're going to think watching the movie that you do know the plot, and you do for a little bit. But luckily, they've just kept enough out of the trailer in terms of rhyme and reasoning and motivations for the character H and the repercussions and circumstances of the main plot of the trailer, that it gives you some swerves and twists and turns, so you go, oh, okay, maybe I don't know what's actually happening here. Maybe there is room for me to be surprised and to try and solve a mystery. But I would love to have tried to solve that mystery with absolutely no information. So there's that. Basically, what I can tell you about the plot is that Jason Statham plays the mysterious H, who is a very cold man who has recently got a job working as a guard in the armored truck business. So he's working with some people. They go to banks, they go to gambling dens, all of that. They pick up wads and wads of cash, and then they take them back to the depot. Now, you don't have to be a wizard at Grand Theft Auto or The Simpsons Hit and Run or anything like that to know that every criminal in the world probably wants to try and get an armored car at some one point. So, of course, there's going to be action, there's going to be armored truck heists, and Jason Statham's H gets involved. But he reveals that he's very good at killing people. He's very good with the guns, he's ruthless, he takes no prisoners, he shows no mercy. But we don't know why. There's very little revealed about him, which is good. You do know that there is a motivation for something he wants to do. But otherwise, that's the mystery, is why is he here? What's he doing? He clearly doesn't have motivations to be a armored truck guardsman for the rest of his life, so why does he do what he wants to do? The movie's split up into about 4 acts. By the end of the first act, you get enough information. Then the second act completely tells you exactly what Jason Statham's deal is in the movie. And it is quite the twist in terms of a character. It is definitely one of the darkest origin stories and darkest main protagonist character that I think has ever been in a Guy Ritchie film. Certainly the darkest character that Jason Statham has played in these films. The plot also zips around, so for a while you're with Jason Statham, and then you switch to some other point of view characters with their own goals and motivations. Of course, everything twists and turns to some big climactic showdown at the end of the movie. Now, as I said watching the trailer before this movie, this didn't feel like a typical Guy Ritchie film, and it's absolutely not. There is no comedy in this film. If it is, it's unintentional, that's for sure. It is no over-the-top quirky characters and quirky dialogue, no misunderstandings, no misfits, no crime capers, nothing like that. It is a lot of other things, though, amalgamation of different films all rolled into one. It is an action film, absolutely, in terms of Jason Statham as our action hero. Even the credits at the start of this movie give you a feel of a James Bond type movie, so it can also be considered a spy-ish movie, though not really. There's definitely a mystery. There's a mystery film going on in terms of solving the mystery of the mysterious H and what he's after and why he's doing what he's doing and who it involves. There could be considered a heist film in terms of the different attacks on armored trucks and building to a main attack and who's behind that. It's a revenge story in terms of people going after other people to exact some sort of vengeance. There's a lot going on, and my overall opinion of this movie is that eventually it got good. I will say that it was a really tough first 20 minutes of this film. I don't know if it was because Guy Ritchie was trying to find his feet. I don't know if he was trying to just get the setup out of the way so he'd get to the good part of the story, which was the twists and turns and the mystery and the action and the revenge and all of that. But it didn't gel. So basically the movie starts is that H starts working at the armored truck company and he meets all the other guards that are with him. And right off the bat, every single one of them is extremely unlikable. They are played up as really macho, homophobic, terrible people that I don't know what the goal is with that. I guess the goal was to make us not like them, and it absolutely worked. But we stuck around with them for so long, and we got beat over the head over and over again with the same stuff. Like, oh, your lady parts are showing when someone is scared, or don't poo your pants, look out for that bank teller, she's a cougar. Just really awkward, jarry sort of stuff, which kind of reminded me of quirky personalities for Guy Ritchie films, but in the wrong way, not in an endearing way, not in a likable way. There was so many of them as well, and it was just over and over again the same sort of stuff, to a point where I was really watching it going, I've made a mistake watching this film. Guy Ritchie, what have you done? You've fallen off the deep end. The thing that kept me going was Jason Statham's very, very good portrayal of H. He plays him with just enough air of mystique, but also indifference and menace and anger. You clearly know right off the bat that he does not care or respect any single person around him. He is not intimidated by them. He could break their necks at the drop of a hat, but he doesn't. He keeps his cool until a point where he gets to show them all, haha, I am the toughest man in all the world. Back off and leave me be. It is only the issue there, though, is that this is the entire first act is just hanging out with these security guards and their over-the-top personalities, and it's a slog. It really is a slog to get through. But if you can do it, which I implore you to try, once you get through that first act and into the second, and you learn H's origin and who he is as a person and where he lives in this world that Guy Ritchie has created, it's very intriguing and very interesting, and it's very nicely done with the usual Guy Ritchie shots and camera work combined with a really powerful music. Very interesting. In the trailer, they play Johnny Cash's Folsom Prison Blues, which I didn't think worked very well with the trailer at all, but in terms of when they use it in the movie, where H is doing some things, it works very powerfully. I had chills watching it, which was exciting, and that was a point where I went, okay, now we're getting somewhere good. Now we've got through that mess of an opening and all that. We're on to the good stuff. We're on to the hard-hitting stuff. Now, I will let that opening slide because this is new territory for Guy Ritchie with this action stuff. This is not his usual stuff. These are not his usual characters. This is not the usual air that he has in his movies. So there was probably some teething issues and still trying to keep his usual dialogue and quirky characters, but trying to apply them to a real world setting with very serious characters who don't play it for comedy, who play everything they say straight and aggressive, and it didn't quite gel. But throw that all aside, for the next half of this movie, once I was solving the clues and the interesting parts, and I realized that there was more to H's revenge plot than to what was shown in the trailer, and there was more to H himself as a person that is not necessarily good or bad, but terrifying for sure. That's when I really got into it. The action, of course, when it gets going, is intense and brutal. I will say, and I hope this isn't a spoiler, but I don't think so really. You'll just be shocked to learn that Wrath of Man has more of a kill count than Mortal Kombat does. Very few people make it out of this movie alive, and nobody gets off with a nice clean death. There's some brutal deaths for people. Even some characters which you may hate in the beginning, and then you sort of start to see them go through a character arc. Suddenly they're completely wiped off the board as well, and you go, oh, okay, there's that. I don't want to say how many people are left alive by the end of this movie, but the number is few. And it's fun. It's fun in this type of movie with a heist action thing going on. It is fun to see people swept off the board in violent ways, and it was a point where the film was getting exciting for me, which was great. This movie is completely held together by the main actor Jason Statham in his portrayal of H. He is the glue that holds this movie together. He's the one you want to see on screen most of the time. All the actors that are around him, they fill their parts well, but no one really shines as like a unique side character that steals the show in the way that I said that Kano stole Mortal Kombat or anything like that. There's some interesting cameos from actors who aren't even credited at the start, so they pop up and you go, oh, I know you, you're from other movies. And I will say that Scott Eastwood is in this movie, and I've never been particularly impressed with anything that Scott Eastwood has done in the past. He's always been given mundane, white guy, action hero sort of stuff, but he plays an interesting character in Wrath of Man, and he worked very well with the stuff he gave, to a point where I was enjoying his performance, which was great. So good on you, Scott Eastwood. Of the Guy Ritchie crew, I believe, aside from Jason Statham, only Eddie Marsan shows up in this, and he, as usual, plays his very small business type role, but he's nice, he's good. It's always good to see Eddie Marsan would work, so that's good stuff. Overall, I don't think there's too much more to say about Wrath of Man, because it is a mystery film, and avoiding the trailer, I want everybody to experience the natural rolling out of the information and the story that comes in this movie. I do recommend it. I just gotta warn you all about that opening bit. It is a slog, and unless you're into that macho bravado, homophobic, look at me, I'm the toughest man in the world, I eat women for breakfast, I don't know, I feel uncomfortable even trying to intimidate it. But that's front and foremost, and it is a slog to get through. But if you can do it, and I understand if you can't, but if you do, hiding behind that first 20 minutes is a really solid action film, a very interesting mystery film, a fun revenge film, a wacky heist film in a dark way. There's some violence, there's some great music, there's some great shooting, directing by Guy Ritchie as per normal, and it was a real solid run to the finish line. I give Wrath of Man a 7 out of 10. It doesn't get any higher than that because of that opening, and because this is Guy Ritchie's first time with this film, and as I said, there are definitely some teething issues for sure. But overall, I didn't expect much out of it. I was cautious, yet optimistic, but prepared to go, alright, this wasn't for me, this is something different. But I had fun with it eventually, and that's great. And as I said, there's not much more in the cinemas besides Mortal Kombat. Wrath of Man may get swallowed up by everybody going to see Mortal Kombat. So if you want to help it out, it's worth seeing. I recommend it. Alright, well there you go. That's another review done and dusted. I hope you enjoyed. I don't think it'll be tomorrow, but over the weekend I will bring my third and final review for this week. Amazon is releasing another movie that was supposed to be in the cinemas called Without Remorse, starring Michael B. Jordan, where he plays a character, John Clark, or John Kelly, whatever he's called in the movie, who is from the Jack Ryan universe. And most people are familiar with Jack Ryan these days, whether you've seen the movies with Harrison Ford or Alec Baldwin, or you're currently watching the Jack Ryan TV show with John Krasinski. But the character that Michael B. Jordan plays is a very interesting character from that world. I love Michael B. Jordan as an actor, so I'm excited to see if this movie's any good. I really didn't like the trailer, so I'm cautious, but I am interested to check it out. And I will try and bring that review to you over Saturday or Sunday to cap a wonderful week of marvelous content from Spliced In Later. I hope you've enjoyed. But until then, stay safe as always. I love and appreciate you. Go see a movie. Go see Mortal Kombat or Wrath of Man. There's stuff to see now, so get out there and see it if you can. You've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.